When did you graduate from Hamilton, and what was your major?
Uh, I graduated in 1985, and was public policy and minored in German. But I think
Okay.
I think I minored in it. Yeah.
Okay. What campus organizations were you part of, or extracurriculars?
So I was a 4-year member of the swim team,
Okay.
and I'm thinking back on what other organizations I did. I mean, basically, swimming took everything out of me. So that was
You were
that
an
was my
athlete.
organization. Yeah.
Were you out when you were a student at Hamilton?
Yes.
And are you out now to your family and friends? Assuming
Oh
you're,
yeah. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, when you were a student at Hamilton, what was the climate like for LGBTQ plus students in your experience?
Uh, so I don't quite know how to put this. It was not okay to be out at Hamilton in the sense of anything you would experience now. It was a an anomaly, and it was it was not at all frightening in the sense of physical violence, but it was um, looked upon as kind of out of the norm, and you had to be pretty strong to be out there because it was very isolating.
What were some of the personal hardships that you um, connect with your experience at Hamilton that are, sorry, I phrased that wrong. um, I guess the right way to say it would be, did you face any personal hardships connected to your LGBTQ plus identity while you were a student at Hamilton College?
Uh, yeah, they were mainly. I would say they were not that much different than somebody who is coming out today, in the sense that you felt lonely, and um, that you really didn't have really in a dedicated support group. At that time, there was a, a sort of a gay alliance that was there, but it was um, underground, and so it was uh, not. It was a lonely period, and a period of time when you felt very isolated, especially at a school like Hamilton, where that wasn't cosmopolitan like a New York City or a
Right.
major school.
Right. Would you say that was the most difficult part of being a gay man on campus?
Yeah, that was probably the most difficult. I mean, the sense of being other, and that you really didn't belong to the community at large, was an easy fallback if you wanted to feel bad about yourself or something. You could blame it on that, and that was a kind of an easy out to say, oh well, I don't really belong here. I'm gay, and no one else is, and or few people are, and but that's kind of one of the reasons I didn't join a fraternity, for example, um, and did not want to.
Okay. What would you say was the best part of being a gay man at Hamilton?
Um, so this sounds kind of funny, but after I came out, one of the best parts of being gay was that I ended up being really good friends with some really amazing and interesting people, as well as some incredibly, and don't take this the wrong way, but probably the most sought after freshman woman the year I really was out, which was my senior year. Became a really great friend of mine, and it drove people nuts. And because Whitney and I could pretty much do anything we wanted to, and that was off the rails, and had a great time
And this is when you were a
with all
senior?
that. What's that?
This is when you were a senior that you were
Yeah, when I was a
freshman?
senior. Yeah,
Okay. And did you come out
yeah.
freshman year of college, or were you out before you came to school?
No, it took me probably the first 2 years I tried to fit in, and tried not to be out, even though, and I can go into this in more detail if you give me a chance later, but I'll answer the question now. I was not out really until my junior year, spring semester, because I went overseas, went to Vienna and studied. And when I was over there, away from everything, I just kind of decided to give up the fight of trying to be straight, and had been battling that for many years. And so when I returned to the campus in the spring of '84, I just essentially came out. And after that, things were actually easier for me after that point.
It's fascinating. Did you engage in any type of activism for the LGBTQ community while you were a student at Hamilton, either on campus or off campus?
Well, just my presence was activism. I was the only varsity athlete, swimmer. Uh, you know, did not fit the stereotypes that most people thought I should fit in order to be a gay man, and I was. I scared a lot of people because of that, and my activism was quite honestly just the confidence that I put out as far as to the public. May not have always been to myself, but
Right.
it was pretty freaking awesome. I mean, but it was intimidating,
Yeah,
but
that's
that
amazing.
the activism was simply being who I was.
Right. That's awesome. Um, so then these are more not necessarily about your like the questions move on to not your Hamilton experience anymore, but I guess I would ask if you would go into a little bit more about, when you came out and what that process was like for you
Right.
at Hamilton.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So was that a question? I'm sorry, I didn't
Oh
get
yeah.
that.
Sorry. I mean, just could you tell me more about, elaborate a little bit more on that?
So essentially, what happened was, the act of defiance, in a way, of coming out, and in the face of it not being exactly um, a completely accepted. There was a tremendous amount of, in my, I guess, best word would be confidence or bravery, that it took to walk into the dining hall when everybody would drop their forks and stare at you, and the whole dining hall would go quiet. And you just had to just walk down the center of the commons dining hall, and just like, okay, everyone's talking about me, so what? And that experience alone led me to realize that essentially I had to fend for myself. And ended up starting my own company when I was 24,
Oh, wow.
25, I guess. And that's what I still do to this day, but mainly on the basis of just knowing that I couldn't depend on anyone.
Yeah.
And, so I was given an education at Hamilton, of course, but I also I had a small area to kind of do a trial run for um, doing your own thing, and it was not. You weren't lost. You still had a safety net under you. I knew I wasn't going to be beaten up. Number one. Number two, I knew I wasn't going to be unsupported by the staff or by the teachers or professors. I knew there was a safety net there, and so Hamilton allowed for me to give it a shot, and that then translated into, okay, I'm going to do this in
Professional.
the rest of my life. So,
Wow, it's fascinating because the next question that is on the list is, what impact did coming out have on your work life? It sounds like it
yeah, yeah.
fully directed your trajectory. Yeah.
No, it was a defining moment. I think more. I mean, other people had other hangups or
Right.
issues they had to address, but mine were mine and uniquely mine. And as the son of a Holocaust survivor, there is a tremendous amount of pressure to fit in, especially when your father was lost his country, and most of his family, and so the idea of again being singled out as a minority that would be persecuted um, definitely led to some scary moments. But ultimately, I decided I didn't really care. I was going to do what I thought was right, professionally and personally.
Fascinating. What impact did coming out then have in your family or social life?
Um, I think, well, so first of all, my father and I had struck a bargain before I went to Hamilton that I would try and be straight. We had a
Your family knew?
treaty, if you will. What's that?
Your family knew before you came to school?
Yeah, because you got to remember, my dad was in counterespionage, so there were ways that in this area, in the DC area, you were spied upon by the U.S. government, and as a security clearance, he our phones were tapped, unbeknownst to me. So essentially, I was outed by my father when I was 17 or 16. I can't remember. And
Wow.
but he and I agreed to giving it a shot until the end of college, that I would try and be straight. And so there was an impact of you know he and I were not exactly best buddies, but there was no rejection. And my friends, I have some of the strongest friends from Hamilton you can imagine, who were my defenders when I came out. So I had a group that really protected me. So I would say there was no impact, if any. It was tremendously positive.
That's awesome. Did were you spiritual at all before Hamilton, or was that not an aspect of your life, like religious?
No, we were taught that organized religion was the root of all evil. So you could be spiritual, but organized religion led to conflict. So I didn't bring any affiliation with me. And in fact, it wasn't until Hamilton that I realized that a lot of my cultural norms were not what my father used to call New York, but they were actually Jewish. So I didn't understand that, why we ate certain things, or because my father also didn't tell us really that he was a Holocaust survivor. So
Do
he
you have
wanted us. What's that?
do you have siblings?
One brother, yes.
Okay. And was he supportive of you?
Uh, Pretty much. I mean, yeah, it was kind of hard to answer. I mean, my father didn't want me to tell my brother, so in order to not impact him, we're only a year apart. So he is supportive now, and was always supportive, and there was never a problem. No, we're never an issue.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you face now as a gay man?
Uh, I think the challenges, there aren't really any challenges as a gay man. That's pretty much gone away. I think the challenges are more um, revolve around just kind of I'm in my mid 50s, and the natural progression of, well, how the hell did I get here?
Yeah.
I'm not 30 anymore, and I don't, you're like, wow, wait a minute. But so I think the challenges may be, I did not have children, and so life is going to be a little different for me. But my husband is younger than me, so at least I have long-term health care built in unless he dumps me. But I don't think that's going to happen. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you more about that later.
Okay. Um, let me think. Is there anything else? I guess the next question is there anything that you want to tell me that we missed that you want to add to the interview?
Yeah, no, I mean, the biggest thing is I married another Hamiltonian,
Oh, okay.
class of '08, and we met at a Spectrum event 5 years ago,
Okay.
and we got married at Hamilton,
In the chapel?
in the chapel.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah. And we had a kick-ass party at Bristol that is pretty legendary,
Yeah.
and yeah. So it's there there there's there are a couple other things that are really important about if you interview anyone of my age, and that is you didn't ask any questions about the AIDS crisis,
Yeah.
and you don't realize, but there's a whole generation of people that are not on this planet. And so I was going to Hamilton during the height of the AIDS epidemic, and the I'm the only out of my high school, I'm the only one who survived, because all the other kids I knew who were other guys who were gay are who passed away. And you can't discount that into a lot of what I'm talking about, because um, when your government is doing nothing for you and you're isolated completely, and um, you know there is a tremendous campaign against you by larger, broader society. Um,
Right.
that had a huge impact. And in fact, going to a small college like Hamilton really, in a way, saved my life, because um, I wasn't in New York, I wasn't in Boston, I wasn't in DC, and I was up on the frozen cold hill,
Right.
So that had a huge impact.
Because you weren't
Uh,
exposed to the virus as much? Is that why?
what's that?
Is it because you weren't as exposed to the virus as if you had been in New York or some other city?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the fate of isolation, and if you're not, it was easy to have dates in a bigger city. It was
Right.
impossible to have a date at Hamilton. But there were there were a lot of gay guys at Hamilton, and uh, we knew who each other were, but it was a pretty quiet, tame community compared to the big city.
Compared to
We
New
missed
York.
out on yeah, exactly. So that was a big deal. I
Yeah.
mean,
I'm surprised that's
you
not on
came,
you,
it was
honestly.
like, I know, it's like coming through a war. Okay. I mean, Hamilton essentially protected me from, and also my own choices, mainly through fear, fear of just I was just a little more conformist, and a lot of elements lined up that created a protection for me. And then the school, the other point was that there was an unspoken network of professors at the school that were extremely supportive of a lot of the gay kids. And while there may not have been, an organized faculty group, there's certainly, you just knew who would help you out. In fact, at graduation, I think, a couple other things. My father, when I told him I was gay right before graduation, told me I had wasted my education in Hamilton, and I had thrown it all away because nobody would hire me. And I told him that wasn't the case, and in fact, there was, a whole group of people that probably would hire me. So, but the thinking of a man who was born in 1926, to him, that I went to Hamilton to make connections, and he had gone to Syracuse Big University. What's that?
Generation. That's my grandparents' generation. So it is.
Yeah, your grandparents. Yeah. So going to Hamilton, he had spent all this money to send me to Hamilton, and part of the deal was I would make contacts, and you'd get in the old boy network. David Solomon was a classmate one year ahead of me. He's head of
big shot.
Goldman Sachs. So but I can tell you, the other thing is just lasting friendships. The depth of friendships that I have with people is extraordinary. And Hamilton really the whole environment there was lent itself to that.
Enjoyed your experience at Hamilton?
Would I would?
Say that you enjoyed your experience at Hamilton?
Well, it's funny because everything looks better later. I would say that it was really difficult. I would have probably enjoyed New York a lot more, or big city. It was really difficult. It was lonely at times. I a lot of times thought, why am I here?
I have those thoughts
but
too.
yeah, what am I doing? Why? It's like being a swimmer. Getting up and at Hamilton, and in the middle of winter, walking across through a blizzard to go dive into a pool, takes a bit of, what the hell am I doing? It's freezing cold. I'm going into freezing cold water, and you just do it. But it's boot camp, and unfortunately, some of the things that actually really matter are things that you have to actually do that are difficult, and they may not be enjoyable at the time, but later in life you look back and say, yeah, I did that. And I'd say this is one of those moments that the school offered, as I said, the safety net and the opportunity to experiment just enough to really make a difference. And even post-graduation, and I was with a man for 13 years shortly after leaving Hamilton, and he passed away about 20 years ago from a freak heart attack. But the school was incredibly supportive of the two of us. We did a lot of the Gold Group activities in DC when I came out, when I moved here, and then I've just always been really involved with the school, and it was kind of crazy when I met Matt, and he's a lot, obviously, he's 33, and he asked me to marry him, and I was like, wait a minute, you're a lot younger, what are you doing? But but no, so this this is just, there's so much here you could work with, and as far as what the school's done, I'm sure there are many gay people that who went in later years may say, oh God, I should have gone to a bigger school or something. But for me, it was um, it I identified really strongly as an athlete and as an individual first, and then as a gay man second. I mean, athlete, student, whatever. Didn't want to be pinned a name, and so it was really important for me not to just be that gay guy. And so that was the hardest thing. Was there was at the time, that was really all. If I'd come out as a freshman, I think in 1981, that would have been the only thing people would have seen and expected me to act, or sort of be in theater or drama club, which is was where the vast majority of the kids who are out.
Tends to be a
But
stereotype.
oh, and here's one other thing which is kind of amazing to me, and I don't know whether this sounds big-headed or not, but I've gone to a lot of the reunions, and I'll have these people come up to me, guys who are from different classes, who I have no idea who they are, and they say that I was the reason they came out later. I was the reason they lead a life they lead now. I've had at least 10 people apologize to me for not being supportive when they knew they were out already, or they were gay already, and they refused. They hadn't come out, and so it's been really kind of just that's when you say what was my activism? Well, just being was the activism, and the result years later is seeing all these people talk to me, and that is kind of makes it all worthwhile, because it did have an impact on people, and I tried to set a quote unquote good example, but didn't hurt to be just pretty much strong willed, and I didn't want to give up, and I didn't want to throw Hamilton away or get mad at Hamilton or say that Hamilton didn't do enough for me, when it wasn't that they needed to do stuff for me. I mean, they just didn't need to actively do things against me. So there's a huge dialogue around that right now, I think, because well, everything's about me. Well, you need to do things for yourself, and the college can help you, but get up, do something, and then we'll talk about what you can do for me. But I mean, no one in the business world is going to be like, oh, here, please,
right.
I'll give you all my money. You got to do something, and
you got to work,
and you got to do it. So you might as well learn it in college, and stop bitching about your classes, and the professor didn't do this. Just get up and move. And if it's not good, go to another class. But I mean, that's a huge lesson I learned from there, was being independent, and then the stick-to-itiveness, and lo and behold, and I always thought, I'll never get married, and then I did, and I actually ended up getting married at the college, which was insane. And I had the school could not have been better. I mean, the wedding was in the summer of 2016, and we had such a good time. I cannot tell you.
I guess I moved in at the end of that summer.
Huh?
I moved in at the end of that summer.
Yeah, no, it was.
Who officiated the wedding?
It was a former Catholic priest I know from here, who we flew up to Hamilton, and then we had this. I mean, the most fun was this great. We flew up this trio of singers from DC, who were 3 African American women. and it was just one big disco party, and
Amazing.
you know, the best songs of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. I mean, and
Sounds like a blast.
yeah, I mean, there are pictures. I could send you. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send you some of those pictures too. I'm going to send you some of the pictures of the wedding and some pictures of me when I was a student down
Yeah.
there. So up there. So I think that'd be a lot of fun to see the, you know,
Full circle.
Scott sitting, yeah, sitting in the quad, you know, as a freshman, and then yeah, I don't look as young, but you know, I'll be willing to share them. I think I looked hard at the wedding, but you know,